Well, the calendar ready to flip over to the month of April. We are still watching and tracking various rounds of severe weather and more systems set to work through here as we begin the new month and really get geared up for spring planting season. Let's talk about the weather outlook as we get into April. Joining us now, Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient Ag Solutions. Eric, good to catch up with you. Another active week last week and weekend for weather. I know some severe weather rolling through parts of the country, a little bit of snow out there as well with this weekend system. And it sounds like more on the way here this week, Eric.
Yeah, you and I were talking before we jumped on air here about going to the basement, right? I sent the kids to the basement a week ago. We were down there. You were down there last night. So good luck with the rest of your day. I know you're tired, but I want to just mention something. Sometimes, especially at night, when we are trying to predict severe weather events, we use what are called Doppler indicated events. In other words, we can see on the Doppler radar that there is the high enough reflectivity to say there's hail in the storm, or we can see the winds in it, or we can see the rotation. And just to kind of give you a quick stat to remember here, whenever we look at rotation on radar, so that's where the storm appears to be spinning, you see a hook echo. About a third of those actually produce tornadoes. But the National Weather Service is going to warn every single one of them because they are always going to play, we're going to be better safe than sorry. But yes, it can be, sometimes you're like, why are we getting warned for this thing? Well, we see rotation, 1 in 3 chance is high enough for us to always, get out the flag and tell you something's going on. But yes, we had severe weather that were kind of ripped through parts of the Midwest yesterday. A lot of severe wind reports through Indiana up into Michigan. We had hail to the south of that, all the way back down into parts of the mid-south, and then to the north of all this, there was a huge ice storm that hit the upper Midwest, like the UP of Michigan as well, northern Wisconsin, UP, and snow on the backside. Now, Jesse, what this is really hinting at, which is so important, is the atmosphere in March righted itself. Now, it couldn't cure all of fall and winter's deficits, but West had a miracle March. The reservoirs currently in California are at 115% of their historical averages. The Colorado Basin is at 90% of its average for the Colorado River. And we've had systems come out. Now, they're holes. The Southern Plains, Central Kansas, the Northern Plains are still holes, and parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. But as you just mentioned, the remainder of March, and then which is just today, but then getting through early that first week of April, we got more severe weather coming to the same places. We've got incredibly heavy rains. I'm talking the chance between 5 and 10 inches of rain from eastern Texas all the way to Ohio. And in between, severe weather, more snow up north. I mean, Minnesota, parts of the Dakotas, northern Wisconsin could get a bunch of snow. Now, if you notice, there's a little bit of, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but I'm not unexcited about this, and has nothing to do with the severe weather and everything to do with the soil moisture recovery, right? I told folks for months, I said, I want you to hate me this spring. I want you to hate every word that comes out of my mouth so that you love me by June. And the reality is systems like this tend to get the job done to break some of the drought pattern that we've been in. But it's a Band-Aid. It's not a cure. And so we still have some underlying problems to be discussing.
Well, when I think about this, and you mentioned some of the same areas, are we running into an issue where some of these areas are getting a little too saturated
Yep.
for early field work, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, we saw flooding in Kentucky earlier in the year, Tennessee earlier in February, now early March, and then we got it coming late. So this whole kind of Ohio Valley into mid Mississippi Valley is just there's gonna be have to be replant. There's probably gonna be some prevent plant. I mean, you just can't take on in the span of 9 days 10 inches of rain in places after you've already been so saturated. I mean, the Mississippi River at Memphis has jumped up. I mean, it's 40 feet higher than it was at its lowest point from this past early winter time frame. So we look at all of that, and you're right. It's kind of like what we said a few weeks ago. It's not just the haves and have-nots. It's the haves way too muches and the haves nothings, right? And so that seems to be the case going forward.
What about as we get a little bit farther into April, just kind of setting up the month? You mentioned some of this activity, some of the rain in the same places, etc. Anything as we look a little further out later in April that you're keeping an eye on, Eric?
Yeah, through the first 3 weeks of April, probably through the entire month, you're going to get a week on, week off that's going to line up with our calendar. It's kind of nice. So we are week on this week. We are week off next week. Then the third week of April is back on. I think the fourth week is off. Now, what that means is I'm talking about the precipitation patterns going back and forth and back and forth. And when you think about the pattern in it, it's going to be the same spots that keep getting hit. Now, that being said, this first week of April could return rain to the southern plains and snow down there as well, which would be crazy to see some snow in Texas, but it's a possibility. Next week, though, the week off, it's drier but colder. We've got cold air coming in across the northern plains all the way into the southeast. And unfortunately, that's going to throw the brakes on a lot of stuff as well because March was so mild. That is the way I think April's going to shape up. And that third week, when things get back on again, warm ups happen and we get the severe weather showing up again. So I think that's the plan.
All right, let's go to South America. I want to touch on things there a little bit. I know you've been tracking some of the NDVI values in
Yeah.
Brazil, for instance. How are things shaping up in South America this week?
So, four states to think about here. These are the easternmost growing areas, and they are not the big producers. Now, they grow a lot of crop, but when you compare them to like Mato Grosso do Sul, Paraná, Rio Grande do Sul, those states, this is a smaller production area, huge in land area, but smaller production. So, what are they? Tocantins, Goiás, Minas Gerais, and Bahia. Back in February, actually late January through February, very dry, missed out on most precipitation events. NDVI values on the safrinha crop crumbled just down to the lowest we've seen in 20 years. It rained the last 10 days. It wasn't like drought curing, but it rained. Those NDVI values have jumped right back up. But that always happens, right? NDVI is measuring plant health. And if that plant looks green and then the near infrared looks red, then that's a healthy looking plant. So the NDVI compares the red to the near infrared, and then the greenness value is just another band at which we measure. So all of them combined show us a healthier crop. But it's it's late April into May that's the critical time period. And if they dry back out, that's going to be something to be paying attention to. The other story in South America is Argentina has taken on a very dry pattern as they are now into their fall time frame. So just a couple things to watch. I don't think they're going to be as newsworthy as the other stuff you're going to be reporting today, but certainly something going on in South America to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. All right, Eric, any final thoughts? Anything we've missed this week? What else are you tracking here at home or around the world?
Yeah, I would just say keep an eye on the quickness at which La Nina fades. It faded hard in the month of March. Just remember that post La Nina events do have a signal. Remember, their strongest signals in winter, not summer. But post La Nina events from May to August tend to be drier from Texas to Wisconsin. And we just need to keep an eye on that area because we do know that there is drought. I mean, we have 45% of the land area in the lower 48 in drought. And while we could make a dent in that with these upcoming rains this next week, that's more than double where we were a year ago. And that's why a lot of us are just concerned about where summer drought could take us.
All right, Eric, give us a plug for the website real quick. I know folks could take a look at just a ton of weather information at agweather.com. Give us a plug
Yeah.
for that real quick.
Yeah, ag-wx.com. And by the way, if you don't know why I use WX, that's a throwback to Morse code. So we used to just tap out WX for weather. So ag-wx.com. And by the way, Jesse, I have finally finished a bunch of the code I've been working on for that site. It's going to be revamped, much more mobile friendly, a lot easier to use. And I hope folks continue to take advantage of it.
Well, we will take a look at that once it is launched, and folks can continue to stay updated there. Take a look at your forecast videos as well.
Mhm.
Agweather.com, ag-wx.com. As always, we appreciate it. Eric Snodgrass, Nutrient Ag Solutions. Thanks for chatting with us here this week. Have a good one. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, get some rest, Jesse. I know that tornado warning kept you up. So take
Gonna
care,
do
man.
my best. Hey,
Yeah,
but like you said at the open, better safe than sorry, right, Eric?
that's right. You're right. Have a good one.
You bet. Thank you. Appreciate it.